Hello, everyone. We are live now. We are a group of practical product design, a small practical course that teaches product designers all the tools and tricks of the trade. And today we are happy to have Alicja, who will share with us some tips on how is it to find a job as a product designer. She has prepared a great presentation. And after the presentation, if you have any questions, we will be happy to transfer those to our Q&A sessions that will happen in 40 minutes from now. So at this point, I give word to Alicja, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Tanya. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today. I'm excited also that you're using your Saturday for improving your job search and in general your results when it comes to your career. It's a really good thing to do. So without further ado, let's go through the contents. Basically, today I would like to talk about how to 10x your job search results. And a little clickbaity title, I know, but the core of it is that I would like to share tips and tricks regarding how to improve the results based on all the years of my personal experience and also mentoring students who are looking for jobs, so that you can ultimately use your time in the most optimal way. And this is like a short guide on how to get hired as a product designer or as a UX designer, because those two have a lot of overlap here. So a little bit about me, just a short introduction. My name is Alicja, if we haven't met before. At the very core, I'm a product designer. I've been working in the industry for over 8 years now. And I'm also a founder of Outdoor Academy and Outdoor Design. Outdoor Academy is where I share my knowledge about product design and hiring with other designers in the form of courses, consultations, etc. And from the highlights in general over the course of my career, I've mentored hundreds of students and I prepared them for the job search. I reviewed over 1,000 portfolios, and I've interviewed hundreds of candidates, not only designers, but also engineers and product managers. So I have like a good foundation regarding what it takes to hire people and what it takes to get hired. And I would like to share some things with you today regarding this topic. So in general, when it comes to getting hired as a product designer, we have three main things that we need to pay attention to, three main topics: skills, portfolio, and interviews. And this is the base for every hiring process, every successful person who got an offer. Skills, portfolio, and interviews, those are three pillars basically that you need to think about, and they need to be in balance. If you're lacking in skills, you're lacking in portfolio, or you're lacking in the interviews, it will definitely damage your chances of getting hired. So you need to work equally, I would say, on all three of those. And let's start with skills. Today I will go through three areas, and I will share tips for every single of them. So starting with tips, starting with skills. This is the very base of everything. Everything starts with skills. Ultimately, when you take everything away, skills are the thing that lands you opportunities and that gets you hired ultimately. When it comes to the portfolio and interviews, those are based on the skills. So basically, how you work and how you present yourself and your work itself is a manifestation of your skills. So you need to develop the unique skill set first, and then think about how to manifest it, how to show it to your potential employer. And when it comes to the skills, you probably heard about the concept of core skills and complementary skills. And this is very good division here, because when it comes to the core skills, those are the things that are like must-have for the job position that you're applying for. Usually for product designers, those are things like UX design, UI design, and research. So everything that is listed in the job description as skills, those are the things that you need to be really brilliant at. But the idea is that basically everyone applying for this particular position has those skills. So it's a little bit boring. It doesn't really differentiate yourself. And it's something that basically as a hiring manager, you're looking at the group of people where a lot of them have the same thing to offer, and it's hard to choose. And what it usually comes down to are the unique pairings, are unique things that you can offer on top of the core skills that are must-haves. And that leads us to complementary skills. And usually when it comes to complementary skills, people view them as just like skills that are complementing the core skills, but they are from different directions. So I do a little video editing, I do a little bit of illustration, I do a little bit of UX research and deep understanding of data. And those things, people, in many cases, they don't approach it very strategically. And what I would like to share with you today are 3 directions in which way you can approach complementary skills and building complementary skill set so that you get the best return on your investment and time and effort. Because if you start to approach this idea strategically, you start to see better opportunities coming your way. So when it comes to the 3 areas where you can develop in first one is visual. So this is the direction where a lot of designers go into naturally. So developing skills like illustration, motion design, sometimes animation, things like that, or very strong UI skills. This is the first direction that you can go into. The second one is technical. So everything connected to the programming and knowledge, like developing your technical skills in general when it comes to technology. And the third that I will walk you through is data analysis. So things connected to basically deepening the UX research part and expanding that towards data analysis and this area of the specialization. And this is something that you can actually start thinking about and start analyzing what kind of opportunities every skill set opens, and in order to maximize the potential of your time that you will spend on developing those skills in the combination of core skills. The overall idea behind developing skill set and behind developing core skills and complementary skills and thinking about them is to become irreplaceable, basically. To have such a unique skill set that people look at you as more than another designer. And this is the very core of what I'm trying to achieve here by expanding on those 3 areas. And becoming irreplaceable basically is connected to creating a unique value. So when you're able to create unique value for the company, for your employer, for your client, this is something that makes you irreplaceable. And if you are treated as irreplaceable, there are certain things that you benefit from. So you have leverage. And leverage, it comes down to leverage during the negotiations of the salary, negotiations of when and how you want to join the company, potential signing bonus, which team you want to join. And also when you are already working, it gives you leverage in negotiations for better conditions of your work. So remote work or potentially getting a pay raise. Another thing is the respect, and this is respect of your team and respect of your employer as well. And that influences your working environment in a very good way. It builds better working atmosphere, and also it gives you a different position in your team, I would say. And the third thing is stability. Stability, and I think it's really important, especially in today's marketplace and in today's economy, because even if you're even if you're working, it's not always gonna last forever. So when you have a unique set of skills, you're less likely to get fired. And even if you find yourself looking for a new job, you have a unique skill set that basically secures more opportunities that are coming your way, whether it's clients or companies that want to work with you full time. And basically, especially if you have a unique skill set that applies to certain pool of companies, they are pulling from a very small pool of candidates that have those skill set. So for example, if a company is developing a highly technical product for engineers, let's say, there aren't that many designers who have experience or understanding of programming and technical aspects that is enough for designing for this kind of product. And if you have it, you're in the very small pool of designers who they are choosing from. So automatically, the scale and the ratio is on your side. So let me expand on the complementary skills right now. So I quickly touched on the 3 areas where we can develop those skills, which is visual, technical, and this research and data analysis. But let's go into more detail what those skills are and what kind of doors they open for you. So when it comes to visual, things like illustration, animation, motion design, graphic design, and UI design, like a very strong UI design skills. And those skill set open possibilities for you to offer to your clients a complex service, let's say. So, excuse me. So when it comes to complex service, it means that they don't have to hire or outsource certain type of work. So if you're a UX designer and you're designing some kind of empty states or some illustrations are needed in the product, you as a UX designer can also take care of it. When it comes to working with clients, when you're working with, for example, startups or companies, if you can walk them through the whole process of setting up their brand, for example, setting up brand strategy, going through creating a website and communicating their product, up to developing the design system and actually doing the UX design for them, this is like a full package. And that also sets you apart because you're leading the whole design direction and you already set yourself up as a leader and as a person who's more who is leading the design by its nature, let's say. So this is a very popular direction for designers to develop because visuals and things that are creative are just a natural inclination for us, but it still has a lot of value. The second one is technical. So everything connected to programming and technology. Of course, normally UX designers have some basic understanding of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's common, but having a deeper understanding, also thinking about other programming languages, other technologies, and being able to understand the developer workflow, that gives you opportunities when working with companies that have more technical products. So for example, if you were to work for a code host like GitHub or GitLab, or some company who's developing infrastructure, so for example, DigitalOcean or MongoDB, those are things that they are looking for, and that sets you apart from all other designers who are coming, for example, from e-commerce or just general UX design. Also, when you're developing those technical capabilities, you're able to communicate with your engineers better in your team, and you're able to offer a different level of understanding and collaboration. So that's also very useful. And the third one is research and data analysis. So basically here, the path will be to come from UX research and improve this skill set when it comes to different research techniques, sourcing people, understanding data, building UX research databases, etc. And then you can go into the areas that are usually more aligned with product managers and data analysts. So when it comes to what product managers do that you can also take from are things like market research, competitive analysis, and building some personas, interviewing potential customers. So basically things that are connected to product development. When it comes to things that are more towards product analysis work, are things like analyzing, organizing data, thinking about infrastructure and building databases. Those are more advanced things, but if you're interested in that, that will also set you apart. And that direction of research and data analysis is useful because it puts you in a position to think more strategically together with your triad, so with your product manager and engineering manager. And also it puts you in a position of leadership and being closer to the strategic decisions that are being made in your team and in your company. So if you're going in this direction, more of a business case direction, this is something to consider as well. So we have those 3 directions depending on your interests and what you would like to do in the future. Those are things to consider. And in general, when it comes to thinking about skills, core skills and complementary skills, it's about the synergy of skills. So the synergy is when you add something, that 2 elements that are separable and they have value, and they create more value because they are together. This is basically the essence of becoming irreplaceable and developing those skill sets in particular directions. So when it comes to portfolio, we're now switching to the second pillar. Portfolio is really important because it expresses the skill set that we've talked about a second ago. So it's also a must-have for majority of the positions, at least for individual contributors. And it's also sometimes a deal breaker. So it's like a gatekeeper for a certain work. So even if your resume is great, if you have great references, but your portfolio doesn't meet the bar, there's a very low chance that you're going to land an interview. So portfolio is something to definitely focus on. And it's your first impression also on the team and on the recruiter. And there are three things that I think that I'm always sharing with my students that I think are key when it comes to portfolio. The portfolio needs to be scannable, memorable, and concise. So those are three things that always when you're making a decision about something, putting something in your portfolio, you need to pay attention to. And I will go through those three and expand on them. When it comes to being scannable, portfolio needs to be scannable because people don't have a lot of time to at least do the first review of your portfolio. So if you are sharing your work and they have, let's say, 5 minutes to go through your profile, they need to be able to scan through your work and make sure that you at least follow the good design process and have some surface level understanding of things that are in your portfolio of your projects. And the whole idea is that you need to prepare your portfolio for scanning and for selective reading. So only because people scan doesn't mean that they wouldn't read certain parts of your portfolio. So you need to be able to have great hierarchy and structure for scanning, but also great content if they decide to pay attention to certain parts of your portfolio that are interesting for them. And when it comes to putting together a good structure for the portfolio, for ensuring scannability, it's mostly about how your portfolio looks like visually and how easy it is to go through one element to another and build an understanding. And you can think about it with working with text hierarchy, so very good distinctions between headers and text and annotations. I also recommend using bullet lists in many places. So instead of having long paragraphs of text that I definitely discourage from, having bullet lists is something that is easier to consume. Also shortening the text. So if you have long paragraphs, try to rewrite them, try to think about if it's really necessary to have that many words in your portfolio. I also recommend highlighting or bolding out certain keywords. So when you look at the structure that I put together here, your eye goes from certain points to certain points that are just like bigger or more intense on the screen. And this is the whole idea. You basically need to apply the same thinking as if you were building a website to your portfolio as well. The biggest mistake that people make is having huge blocks of text with not that much differentiation in the hierarchy of the text, and basically everything is really dull, is really difficult to go through, and also all the portfolio, like every case study, looks the same. And the last thing that I would like to mention here are sections and pivots. So let's say that you're going through the whole design process and you're finishing the research section and you're starting with the design process. You need to mark that in the portfolio as well. So this gray element here on the screen, marks at end of the section, or it marks a pivotal moment in the process. So for example, to indicate that from this point on, we changed the strategy, we changed something about the project. It's also easier for someone who doesn't know the project to build an understanding when they're reading a document like this. And the next thing about portfolio, it needs to be scannable, it needs to be memorable. And when it comes to the memorability of the portfolio, it's also about standing out, but doing it in a skillful way. So I definitely discourage things like having too heavy interactions, things following the cursor, just things that are too flashy or difficult to read in your portfolio. It needs to be fairly simple. So the easiest way to achieve this memorability is by personal branding, by adding elements to your portfolio that are just a little bit different from everyone else, that show your personality, that show who you are, and show that you are different from all other designers that are out there. The important thing is to stand out, but at the same time to keep it simple. And I prepared some examples to illustrate what I mean. So, for example, in this portfolio, you can see that someone added very intense colors and illustrations, and it's a little bit funny, a little bit probably corresponding with his personality. And that's enough to stand out a little bit and have this personal touch to your portfolio. Another thing that you can do is to have thumbnails or add some visual elements that are standing out a little bit. Here is a very simple example. Victoria added those little bubbles and 3D elements to the thumbnails, and also later on in the case study in the visuals as well. And that's already enough to make it stand out a little bit more. And the third example that I would like to share with you is connected to this picture at the very top, which I think is an interesting game that is being played here, because she said, Leslie says that she's an interaction designer, and she has an element that feels a little bit more interactive on this picture. And also it's an interesting visual that probably shows her personality as well, and is just memorable. So those are the things that you can do. They are fairly simple, but it will already make your portfolio stand out. And the last thing, after memorable, it needs to be concise. It means that you need to think about every detail that you're adding to your portfolio. It needs to be distilled version of your project, because building a narration for a portfolio, for a case study, is about synthesizing and distilling information. It is not about telling every single detail of your story. That will be unrealistic, because let's say that the project was 3 months or 6 months project. You can't talk about every single detail. The whole art of creating a portfolio is about distilling the most important information and making sure that the sequence makes sense for people who are reading through it. So you do it by choosing carefully the details to share. So every single time that you're choosing a detail, you need to think about, is it valuable, and it will be more confusing. So when you're sharing something, so for example, do you really need to share every single insight from usability testing? Probably not. Probably you want to synthesize that and say, those are the decisions that we made based on the usability testing, because that's the feedback that we've gotten. So this is a very common mistake that I see people make, that they are oversharing, and it's confusing, and it sometimes also leads to difficult questions and explanations during the interview process, which is also something that you need to think about in advance when creating your portfolio. And now, when it comes to the portfolio, we also have top 5 mistakes from reviewing 1,000 portfolios that I would like to share with you. They are connected to those three things that you need to cover, that it needs to be scannable, memorable, and concise. But those are the 5 things that I think are the most common and also the most damaging for the portfolios, that if you can avoid them, you're probably halfway there already. So that would be great. The first one is not enough context. So when it comes to context in the portfolio, you have high-level context and portfolio-level context. When it comes to high-level context, this is information about you. So who you are, your contact information, your social media, what are your aspirations, what are your skills as well. And in general, providing more context than only, here are 5 projects and this is my name. You need to build a little bit of trust when someone is looking at your portfolio, so that they are more comfortable working with you potentially. And when it comes to context level case study, those are things that you need to cover to let them understand the background behind the project. So things like who you were working with, who was in your team, how long ago was the project, and also what company it was. What was the product that the project was about? So a lot of people jump straight into the features. So for example, they were developing the new calendar view or new lists or something different, but they are not talking about the high level picture of the product. And people usually get confused because it's really hard to jump into the project without knowing the full background. So this is something to really avoid, and it's fairly easy, just give an introduction in the first section of the case study, and that basically solves the problem. Another thing is forgetting about goals. So when talking about the project, you need to connect it to the goals for the company and for the project itself. You need to start from there, because you want to avoid the impression that you're designing just for the sake of designing. You need to have a purpose before you started a project, and you need to have a deep understanding of the why behind the project. And another thing that you can do is connect project goals with company goals. If you can show this connection, it also shows that you are capable of understanding the business context, and you know how your work contributes to the work of the whole organization. And this is something very, very valuable, especially for hiring managers who are looking for people who are more senior, or they are developing in the right direction. So I will definitely recommend that. The third one is unclear ownership. And when it comes to ownership of the project, you need to make sure that it's very clear with what you did in the project. So sometimes it seems like the whole project is done by one person, but it's sometimes not true. And it's a really bad impression when you go to the interview and it comes out that some things or part of the project were not done by you, and you just put them into the project. So if you do something like this, you need to be really clear regarding, I was helping in research, or when you were working, for example, with more senior designer, you can say that I prepared first the draft and then they polished the UI. It's completely okay, but the focus needs to be on honesty. And I saw in the past many hiring managers basically rejecting the portfolios because they were unclear on what was the ownership of the project, and because the person was more junior, they didn't believe that this person produced outcomes on this level, and they already felt that it was dishonest or unclear for them. It was too much effort to kind of understand this subject, and they just rejected the portfolio. I know it may not be fair. I know it may not be a good practice, but it may happen. So it's better to prevent it so that it doesn't happen to you. And the fourth one is not enough or too much content. So this is about balance between having a really short case study or having a case study that takes 3 hours to read through. Basically, there needs to be a balance. You need to meet somewhere in the middle so that you're providing enough information and enough information about your process, but you're not overwhelming someone with too much information. So not enough would be a short description, some goals, and couple mock-ups, usually high fidelity, and those portfolios don't land many jobs. Or we have too much content where you're talking about every single step and you have so much content and so much text. And I see a lot of portfolios, especially after UX bootcamps or courses, where people want to show every single thing that they did because it's like something that they are proud of, but at the same time, it kind of works against you. So you need to balance it out a little so that it's easy to go through, and basically it's easy to build an understanding of what you did. And and the fifth and the last one is making it difficult to access. Basically, sometimes when designers are sharing their portfolio, for some reason, they do things to block people from seeing this portfolio. For example, they have password protected pages. And I understand that sometimes you have to do it because of the contractual issues, the NDA that you sign, and that's perfectly fine. Then you need to just provide password and make it very clear in your application. But I saw many people just protecting it for no reason. And that doesn't work in your favor. Some portfolios have broken links, and those are the links that are broken between the main page and the thumbnail and the case study. So basically, there is no way of accessing the case study. And imagine if you have 5 projects and 2 of them have broken links, then you just have 3 projects for someone to review, and that reduces your chances of getting hired. Also, broken links are very easy to test and to fix. So that shouldn't be something that is like diminishing your potential for getting hired. And the last one is portfolios available only on downloads. So for example, PDF files and things like that. So it feels a little outdated. And at the same time, some people may just not be able to download it because many companies block what recruiters can download on the computers for security reasons. So you're basically blocking this person from seeing your portfolio at all. So those are 3 things about making it difficult to access, to not do, but I'm still seeing a lot of them. So those are, this is the 5th mistake that I would like to share. So we have 5 mistakes here. And now we are ready to go through interviews. So we have the portfolio, everything is perfect. We made through the process of scanning the portfolio, and now we can talk about interviews. When it comes to the interviews, the goal is to find the right match. And I would like you to have a little bit of a paradigm shift here. And I recommend that to my students as well. So interview is not only for the company to interview if you are good enough of a designer to join them. The interview is also for you. It is as much for them as it is for you. You want to find a company where you will feel good, you can develop, and you can feel happy, because if you omit some red flags during the interview, basically you're working against yourself and you're setting yourself for failure, even bigger than not getting this job initially. So when it comes to finding the right match, you need to think about 3 areas of focus when preparing for the interviews and when going through the interview process. Research the company, prepare your answers, and meet the team. When it comes to researching the company, this is something that you need to do before the interview or sometimes even before applying. So go through their website, see what they are building and who they are building for. Go through the handbook. So if they have any internal documents that you can read through, like how they work, what is their philosophy, what is their mission and vision, go through everything. Read reviews on some portals. Sometimes when it's a bigger company, it's available. Try the product. I can't express it enough how many times I saw it during the interview process that people are applying for a job and they haven't used the product. They haven't signed up for a trial. They haven't done anything with the product that they claim to be interested in developing. Don't make this mistake. I know it's like when you have a lot of interviews, a lot of companies, and you're in the job search, it's time consuming, but at the same time, you will be able to actually talk with people in the team who are and communicate about this product. So it's important. If you can't access the product, if it's like a paid product or you can't access the full version, watch tutorials on YouTube, watch any resources that they have just to build an understanding. And check them on LinkedIn and check CEO, CTO, key people on LinkedIn to see what they are sharing, what kind of philosophy do they have, if it aligns with your values. The second step is prepare your answers. And those are answers for the most common questions. So you can bet that at least one question will come up during the interview process from those on the list here. And just prepare your answer, practice in advance. It will give you this clarity going into the interview, and it will also keep you relaxed during the interview process, let's say. So what is your biggest success, biggest failure so far? Favorite and the worst project? Very popular questions. Why you are a good fit? So think about what skills you have and what values you have so that make you a good fit for this position. Your design process, very straightforward question, but almost always appears. Collaboration with the team, how you collaborate with engineers, how you collaborate with other disciplines. And career growth, what are you looking for? And what are the things that you want to do within the next 2-3 years in this company? So very simple questions, just prepare for them and be ready to answer and discuss. And the last step is meet the team. And this is important before and after and during the interviews. Meeting the team on LinkedIn, even before the interview, send them invites, just say hello and that you're excited for the interview tomorrow. Ask them questions, so be genuinely interested about the company, and I will get to the example questions in a second. But ask them questions about the product, how they work, who they are. It's important. You can ask to work with them for a day, just to see how the team is and how the company is. Join some meetings or do a design review for them. just to collaborate a little bit to make sure that you are good, that you're feeling good with these people. And after the interview, send them a thank you note. So basically say thank you for the interview and just don't ghost them. This is a really important thing as well. And I saw many candidates doing that because when you have many interviews, it's sometimes possible that it will slip, but I really recommend that. So those 3 pillars before and during the interviews will set you for a successful interview. And now let's talk about the questions that you can ask, because this is something that usually is quite interesting and problematic. And the most important part here is to detect red and green flags about the company. And this is your objective when asking those questions. First one that you can ask is, what is the design team structure and what is design's role in the company? And what you would like to uncover here is design as important as product as engineering? For example, if you have what kind of structure you have in the company, do design go under product, under engineering, or is it a separate organization and they have like a seat at the table, let's say? What is design's role in the company? Do they have like internal agency approach, or designers are embedded in the product teams and they are making decisions as well? This will really influence your development as a designer. So it's important to be in the company where you can have optimal environment for growth. The second question is, and this is the question for your manager, if you hired me today, how would you know that I'm successful in 6 months? And basically, you want to know the expectations for this role. And the most important part is, it's not what those expectations are. The most important part is if this manager has thought about it before. Because if someone is hiring a designer and they don't know what the expectations are for the next 6 months, it's a big red flag. And you want to avoid getting into a situation like this, because then it will be hard to get a good performance review. It will be hard to progress in your career, because if expectations are not clear, even at the very beginning, it is already something to correct from the get-go. So better not set yourself for this kind of situation. And the third question is, tell me about the situation when the team member failed and how did you handle it? So you're not asking a speculative question about how would they handle it. You're asking about the past experience. So there is a higher probability that they will tell you the truth, at least to a certain extent. And the idea is that you need to understand if this company makes it safe to fail for you as a designer. So if it's safe to explore, if it's okay to make mistakes, and also if leaders support your growth. So if the answer is that they set up a plan with the person to correct the mistake, they analyzed, they had a retrospective, those are really good points. If they just fire the person or they don't have a really good answer, this is a really big red flag. So you're looking here for some kind of security from their side. Perfect. So this is everything that I have from portfolio, skills, and interviews. We talked about those 3, the most important pillars. When it comes to skills, just a reminder, we have core and complementary skills, and it's about building a very unique skill set so that you can become irreplaceable. When it comes to the portfolio, we covered top 5 mistakes and also 3 most important things that you need to remember. That needs to be scannable, memorable, and concise. For the interviews, paradigm shift, when thinking about you also are interviewing this company as much as they are interviewing you. And you need to prepare for the interviews when it comes to researching the company, preparing your answers, and meeting the team. So this is the whole package here for the 3 pillars. And now it's time for Q&A. So I'll take it over to Tanya.
Yes, thank you, Alicia. It's a great presentation. I really liked how you went through all 3 pillars. And from what I hear, actually, all the process is about value match between the candidate and the company. And you did a great job on exploring all the important steps along the way. So thank you so much for the presentation. I would like to ask first question myself, if you don't mind, and then whenever anyone in the group, usually Yuri has many questions. He is our our how to say yeah, I forgot the right word. Kind of look it with so many questions. It's difficult to to stop the talk. But I would steal the first question for myself. So you mentioned that you actually had seen more than 1,000 portfolios in your career. And from my experience, it is also the case whenever you are looking for candidates, sometimes HR bring you like 20 portfolios a day and you have to look through all of them to find those unique gems and to those people you want to talk to. Yeah, and the question is, from your experience, how many portfolios are there, like for a single candidate you have to look through? And how much time does it take to actually scan the one particular portfolio?
That's an interesting question. So the number of portfolios heavily depend on the popularity of the company. So Google will receive thousands. Some smaller company will receive hundreds. Usually, like, I've never been a part of the recruitment process where we put the advertisement and it was less than 100. So it's really a lot of portfolios. Majority of them, unfortunately, are not meeting the mark by any means. But there is a lot of to analyze. In some companies, when you have the more developed HR department, person who's responsible for this recruitment process will pre-review them for you. So you have certain criteria that those portfolios need to meet. So you have a little bit of help. But in general, it's a lot. It's in hundreds. And when it comes to the time that you can spend on it, as a hiring manager, unfortunately, very first scan, sometimes 3 minutes, not even 5, usually 3. Then when you like have the first understanding of, okay, there is a good structure there is enough projects, it's aligned with more or less what we're looking for, then you spend more time on reading it. So it doesn't mean that they will only spend 3 or 5 minutes, but to catch their attention and to prove that you have a good structure there and there's something to look forward to, it's very quick. It's 3 minutes max. So it's something that you need to, the scannability of the portfolio, it's something that you really need to nail.
Thank you so much. Yeah, same on our side. You have to find something quickly, otherwise the portfolio is lost and the candidates, they will just get a very short response in just very standard answer, basically. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yuri, do you have questions?
Yes, actually, I have a lot. But anyway, Alicia, thank you for so insightful presentation. Like, it was very cool to hear a lot of details about how to do and how to prepare for job interview and how to prepare portfolio. And I have one question as a former hiring manager and actually design manager. So far as I see, there is a clear distinction between, the visual designers or UI designers or, the people who deliver like visuals and, more like UX-ish people, like the people who deliver like some kind of thought process of solving a problem. And our students here are also like, they were designing less visuals and more like, finding a solution to a problem. And in this case, what would you advise for people like who have similar experience? And how do you advise them to put it into the portfolio? Because like the majority of portfolios I've seen were like, shots from Dribble expanded into the Behance page. You probably get it.
Yeah, yes. So your question is how to showcase this UX part of the skill set without having the fleshed out UI. So this is actually something that when it comes to recruiting for the companies that are looking for product designers, this is an advantage. This is not a disadvantage. Having a Dribble shots expanding to whatever Behance, this is something that like eliminates the portfolio. it's not important. It's not to say that UI skills are not important, but the process that you can show behind those decisions that you made is more important. So when it comes to how to showcasing that, definitely, as always, start with the problem, start with the introduction to the problem, and basically go through all the phases of the design process that you went through, and document the artifacts. For example, if you have some sketches, if you have some affinity mapping from the research, if you have some research done, and like just document everything and synthesize, don't overwhelm, the same rules apply. And when it comes to the end of the project, where usually you would probably see those high fidelity designs that you don't have right now, it's totally okay to end with low fidelity designs and just add the note that that's where where your work ended, and you send it to UI designer, for example, or it's ready to be sent to the UI designer. So you're narrowing your skill set, like you're narrowing the presentation, but you're doing it consciously. So it's not something that looks like it's unfinished. And you're conscious about, okay, this is like low fidelity design that I've prepared, which is just an prototype, for example, of interactions or how it could look on the screen. And it doesn't eliminate you. At the same time, I would advise to develop UI skills if it's possible for you, because it will just broaden your spectrum, and you would be less likely to hire as a product designer, because even if you're not working like with high fidelity designs when it comes to like developing the whole UI system, you need to be able to work with the UI system that is already in place. So this is a good complementary skill, but I totally see your point, and it's also possible to create portfolio with UX skills only. Did it answer the question?
Yes. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, my next question would be regarding NDA. So you mentioned it briefly already that sometimes the projects may be limited due to some non-disclosure agreements. Are there any top strategies you can share about non-disclosing too much if you have NDA, and probably some kind of checklist on how to approach it?
So the only way to approach it, if you already signed the NDA, is to have a written confirmation from someone from the company who's like a manager or a decision maker that your portfolio, what you've showcased in the portfolio, they are approving to show it. How to approach it? How to approach it? You need to start the conversation, prepare the portfolio piece before sharing it. You need to send it via email to the person that you need confirmation from. Usually it's a person who either signed the contract or was your manager and has the power to make a decision. And you need a written confirmation in the email saying, yes, what you disclosed in the previous email, it's okay to share. So this is the only way to do it. And it needs to be also stated if it's okay to share behind password protection, or it's okay to share publicly, or some parts may be okay to share publicly. Usually it's okay for the companies, because if you don't share like secrets about or names of customers or names of people that you talked to, or maybe some important changes in the strategy, usually they don't mind. But to protect yourself, you need to have this written confirmation.
Thank you so much. Probably someone from a group has a question to Alicja. Anastasia, please.
Yeah, I have a question. Hello, Alicia. I have one question about, is it real to become a part of the international or a broad team, totally remote, so from Ukraine? And do you have maybe some tips how to reach this goal? And what we need to show in our portfolio or CV to show our competence and our skills? Thank you.
Sure, that's an interesting question, because it opens your opportunities for higher income, more interesting themes, probably just a broadened spectrum. Of course, it's possible. I'm originally from Poland. I'm right now in Spain, but I've been working from Poland remotely for majority of my career. Only my first job was in the office. So yes, it is possible. the only thing that I would probably pay attention to is that those junior positions or junior openings or internships, if the company is not totally remote, it's more difficult. It's more usual that first job is in the office and then people transfer to remote, but it's not impossible. The important thing is to show that you are able to work remotely by developing good communication skills, by showing in your portfolio that you maybe did some remote user interviews, for example, or you're able to document your process correctly. In general, showing those skills in the portfolio. There will not be that much difference in the portfolio for like office job and remote job. But I think, for example, writing an article on Medium about how you work remotely, like some good practices, having that in your profile that you're able to work remotely and why, and that you're interested in working remotely. And then during the interview process, usually they will ask you questions about how you work, how you document your process, what are the best practices for working remotely, what are the challenges of working remotely that you potentially foresee, and how you want to overcome them. So preparing for those three aspects, that will make it easier for you. There isn't anything that is particular about portfolio to show there because it's more about how you work. But definitely in the interview process, it will come up. And how to look for those jobs? You need to look for jobs that are on the remote boards or the companies that are fully distributed. You can find the lists in the internet. Important thing to look for is also if they're hiring US only remote or they're hiring worldwide, because US companies usually hire remotely in the United States. And they hire people just as employees, just you don't have to go to the office. If you are in the worldwide company, let's say, that is hiring remotely from wherever, or from Europe, for example, and US, you will be probably a contractor. So you need to have your own company set up in Ukraine or set up in Poland or wherever you are. And then that will be like the legal part of it. There is less offers for Europe than it is for US. So it's good to pay attention to it in advance, because sometimes you're sending out applications that are not really, that will fail because you're just not in the time zone that they are looking for. So just a practical tip to not waste the time, but it's absolutely possible. And it's also good to not only look at the job boards for the remote jobs, but also look for companies that you're interested in that are remote, and look for the openings on their website, because a lot of those companies don't publish in the job boards. So those are the tips that I can share from my experience.
Thank you. Yeah, it's working for a small company myself. I would share that most of our employees we have found through personal connections without ever getting to a job board. So thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else want to ask a question? Okay, then last question from my side, and we will be closing our talk for today. And the question is, Alicia, you mentioned that it's good to come to company with a list of questions and try the app. And from my experience, sometimes it happens that designers get carried away with trying the app and come to a job interview with a list of suggestions of how the application can be improved. What would you recommend those people who get over enthusiastic?
I would say you can have that in your head, because it happened to me that it was a question from the company, like, oh, you saw our product, what are your first thoughts that you would improve? But I wouldn't share it proactively. I would share it only when asked, because it also shows like you can have ideas, etc., but you don't have background that they have from research, from experiences, etc. So it may show you in a bad light, unfortunately, even though it was like an honest thing to do, because you shouldn't be you shouldn't be sharing those kind of ideas without background. It shows it needs to show your approach, and everything that you say needs to show your maturity and your product design process. It's analogical to the redesigns of YouTube or Spotify, of those things that we see online without any background. So it basically will work against you unless you're asked for it. I would suggest not sharing that at this point. And if you are asked for it, mentioned before that those are the first impressions and you would need more information, but those are the things, and be really nice about it, because you never know whose idea it was and who will feel a little hurt with your comments. So it's better to play it safe at this point.
Thank you so much. It was a great talk today. Thank you for all the experience and all the information that you have shared. As a thank you for your talk today, we have given a donation to families of Ukrainian defenders. If anyone wants to contribute, I will share a link here and also in comments to this video. Yes, please join Alicja on LinkedIn. I also noticed you have a YouTube, so we will be getting friends as YouTube channels, I believe. And it was great talking to you today, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the time. And yes, please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any follow-up questions, anything that you'd like to discuss, or just want to connect. I'm also sharing resources as I go through the year. There's a website for Outdoor Academy. This is the school that I mentioned before, where I prepare people for the interview process. You can take the free portfolio masterclass. This is a 5-day course that is totally free, no strings attached, and you can improve your portfolio. And I also, on March 20th, I'm starting Product Designer's Guide to Getting Hired. If you want to continue working with me and preparing for the interviews, preparing for the portfolio, we have a more extended course that prepares for all the aspects of the interview process, together with pre and post course design, portfolio reviews and mock interviews, where we kind of try to have an interview and correct mistakes as we go. So it's a lot of fun, and also you can prepare for the recruitment process and be more successful because of this preparation. It's a very complex program. So again, thank you so much, and I'll be happy to connect. I'm hoping that you take those learnings, and from Monday you're basically applying them and having a lot of success during the recruitment process for everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.